Hi guys, it's Jess from Honest Fiction, and welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I'm going to be doing the top of the trope tag, sharing some of my all-time favorite fantasy romance books based on popular romance tropes. Alright guys, so full transparency, this is actually a mashup of two different video ideas. So originally I planned on filming an ultimate beginner's guide to fantasy romance, and I was going to share popular fantasy romance tropes and kind of give you fantasy romance books that went with those tropes. Well, as I was mapping that out, my friend B over at Mama Needs to Read Romance, I'll have her link down in the description below, asked if I would be interested in participating in her original tag video. So B did a bunch of research and found popular romance tropes and asked myself, along with a bunch of other amazing content creators, I will have everyone listed down in the description below, if we would be interested in participating. So of course I said yes, and now I'm kind of going to merge both videos together. So in this video, I'm going to be sharing 10 different romance tropes that B selected, and then 3 to 4 or 5 fantasy romance books that fit each trope. So this should be really fun, and I am so excited to talk about these books with you guys. Now, if you're unfamiliar with my channel, I post new videos every Wednesday and Sunday. If you haven't yet, please like and subscribe. You can also hit that notification bell to be notified whenever I post new bookish content. You can also check out my Instagram, Goodreads, and Patreon. I'll link down below. With all that out of the way, let's do the top of the tropes tag. Alright, so starting strong with trope number 1, we have enemies to lovers. Now, enemies to lovers is exactly as the name suggests. It's when two characters, upon meeting each other, have intense dislike or even hate, but as they slowly start to get to know each other, a romance begins to blossom. I am obsessed with anything enemies to lovers. It is literally one of my favorite subgenres or tropes in romance, so this was very hard to narrow down. I did pick 4 books that I absolutely love, and all kind of have a different vibe from one another, despite them all featuring enemies to lovers. So first up, we have Slaying the Shadow Prince. Now, technically, this is part of the Legend of Thesmar series. However, you can 100% read it as a standalone. We are following this badass monster hunter who reluctantly has to work with her greatest enemy, a wraith, in order for them to both save their kingdom or their realm. But in doing so, they might end up saving each other as well. This was so good and such an easy read. You can easily read it in one sitting. It's pretty short. I think it actually might be considered a novella, but oh my gosh, I love this, and definitely enemies to lovers. I will say the monster hunter absolutely detests wraiths, which our main character is. So really, really good, really angsty, absolutely love it. Then the other one is Flames of Chaos by Amelia Hutchins. This is a darker, much darker, kind of witch, and he's not a demon, but he's close enough, romance. Now in this, we are following this girl that is part of a coven of witches. They are all sisters. I'm actually pretty sure they're all sets of twins. But anyway, her twin sister ends up going missing in the human realm. So our main character, along with all of her sisters, go to this city trying to find her. And what they find instead is this warlock who has decided to make himself the king of this area. And he doesn't want to deal with this group of witches, and they absolutely hate each other. And talk about how much they want to sleep with each other even while they hate each other, which is kind of a weird dynamic. But I will say, while I definitely have issues with this book and the writing, and there is a certain pineapple scene, it's interesting. I did end up loving the second half of this book, and I keep almost picking up the sequel. So I definitely want to go back and actually finish this series. If you finished it, let me know. I know a lot of people told me when I DNF'd this the first time that as you progress through the series, it gets better and better. And the way this book left off, I need to know what happened. So I might be continuing this soon, but this is a darker, witchy enemies to lovers. Then we have On Wings of Blood. Now this is more of a bully enemies to lovers. We are following this girl who's actually a fae princess, I believe, or half fae princess. And she ends up waking up in a completely different realm. And this realm ends up being inhabited by vampires. And one of these higher up vampires ends up stumbling upon our main character and says, hey, I think that you might be one of the last dragon riders in our realm. So because of this, her life is spared, but she has to go to Bloodwing Academy to learn how to be a dragon rider, and also ends up in a marriage agreement with one of the higher up vampires that is also attending this academy, and he absolutely hates our main character. So like I said, very, very bully. This also kind of reminded me of a certain wizarding school a little bit. It definitely had that vibe with three best friends that shared similar characteristics. So kind of know that going in. But overall, this also had an ending where I was like, I need the second book. So I'm pretty sure the audio for the second book has recently released. I definitely need to get to that soon. And then finally, we have Broken Souls and Bones by L.J. Andrews. I love this when I read it. I do have to go back and do a reread because there are some parts I'm starting to forget. But we're essentially following this girl that possesses a secret magic that she wants no one to know about. Unfortunately, the king ends up sending his guard to the town she is living in, and in order to save her friend who is being killed or tortured, she has to kind of reveal that she has this magical ability. So the guard tells her that she now will be the next meddler for the king, which is this position that requires her to be able to use bone magic, which was super awesome. And he is going to take her there, and her life is going to essentially be a meddler, which she does not want to do. So it's a romance between her and her captor. And I also really, really enjoyed this book, especially the bone magic. I just thought it was super creepy and eerie. But yeah, those are 4 enemies to lovers fantasy romance books that are all awesome. All right, so the next trope is friends to lovers. Now, this is when two people meet, they enter into a friendship, and slowly that friendship transitions into a romance. Unfortunately, I don't read a ton of cutesy fantasy romance books. I prefer more of the darker stuff, like Forced Proximity, Captor Captive. So I had a really hard time coming up with friends to lovers, especially because we also have childhood friends to lovers on this list. So I only have 2 books, but they do fit. So first up we have The Assassin's Blade by Sarah J. Maas. This is one of the books in the Throne of Glass series. Now I can't exactly say which book it is because you can really read this book in a few different places. I recommend picking it up before Heir of Fire, but that's just me. I know a lot of people read this book first. Some people wait until the very end. Totally a personal preference. But if you're unfamiliar with the Throne of Glass series, I really can't get into this book because it is a major spoiler. The entire book is a spoiler. We are essentially following Selena Sardathian, and she was once an amazing assassin, but she has now been captured and sent to Endover, where she is forced to work as a slave. Now, the king of the kingdom that she is living in is about to have this competition to try to find his next royal guard. So he ends up sending his guards to Endover, where Selena is located, and says, hey, if you will fight in this gladiator competition, and if you survive, then you'll be free and you'll be my personal guard. She agrees, and it really snowballs from there. There is so much more to it than that. This becomes such an epic series, so many different romances, but Assassin's Blade definitely features a friends to lovers, and oh gosh, have all of your tissues ready. So this is the first one. And then the other one is actually the Lady of Darkness series. Now, the main romance in this is not friends to lovers, but my favorite part about this series is the amount of different romances and romances that you get to experience with these characters. And one of them is friends to lovers. I actually think a couple are friends to lovers. There is a romance trope in this series for absolutely everyone. If you're unfamiliar with the Lady of Darkness series, I recently hosted a read-along over on my Patreon, so I feel like for a lot of you, you are sick of hearing of this series. But we're following this girl named... No, we're not. We're following this girl named Scarlet, who, when she was very young, she was found by an assassin lord who believed she was orphaned. He ended up training her to be an amazing assassin, along with her 2 other adopted sisters, and together, they essentially killed on command. Now, the assassin lord has been holding the information Scarlet really needs, information about the Fae Fire Prince that she believes killed her family, and he says that he will give it to her if she is able to kill one last person. Now, before Scarlet can do this, she ends up finding out that some children are going missing, and then this mysterious stranger enters the kingdom, and it goes from there. I love this series with all my heart, almost as much as I love the Legacy series by Melissa K. Rorich. I'm actually hosting a read-along starting this month in August. We're reading one book a month until we finish the series in December. The last book is dropping at the end of November. I cannot wait. So definitely check out my Patreon if you haven't yet. But oh my gosh, definitely friends to lovers. This series has everything. And next up, we have fake dating. Now, fake dating is when two characters pretend to be in a romantic relationship, usually for an end goal or to deceive others, but aren't actually in a romantic relationship at the start. So I actually did this video, or a very similar video, a few months ago, and I really struggled with fake dating. I feel like I give the same response to this prompt every single time. But I've recently read two other books that do feature fake dating and are romantasy, so that was very exciting. First up, we have Arcana Academy by Elise Kova. I actually just read this about a week ago. I'm still kind of figuring out my thoughts. While I did love the magic system in this, I just really didn't feel that invested to the story. But if you're unfamiliar, this is following this girl that lives in a world where you are not supposed to use magic. However, she survives by crafting tarot cards. So she is a fugitive, and she ends up being sent to a dungeon where she is saved by this professor. Actually, I think he's the headmaster of Arcana Academy. And he tells her, hey, I need you to pretend to be my fiance. And if you do that, eventually I will help you get your freedom. She agrees, and then she has to go to Arcana Academy, and it all really starts to get going from there. Now, once again, I did enjoy this book, love the magic, really enjoyed the writing. Just for some reason, I was bored through like 90% of this book. So just go in knowing that. I feel like this is getting pretty positive reviews, so it might just be a me thing. But this features the fake dating trope. Then we have Enchantra by Kaylee Smith. So this is the sequel to Phantasma. I am not positive if you have to read Phantasma first. I'm pretty sure you can read this as a standalone. But this is following this girl who is really down on her luck. She ends up going to this Italian manor, and she is able to slip in, which shouldn't be possible. And when she enters, she finds out that she is now being thrust into this deadly game of hide and seek, and the only person that can help her is another one of the people kind of in the same predicament as her. So they agree that they are going to fake date in order to have an advantage, and it's their romance. If you have seen Ready or Not, this is essentially a book version of that movie. I loved it so much. I actually might like this one more than Phantasma, mostly because of the side characters. The humor in this is great. And then finally we have A Court of Blood and Bindings. This is my tried and true for fake dating in fantasy romance. So in this world, there are humans, and then the Fae control the humans because the Fae possess color magic, which allows them to pull certain colors out of items and create unique magic. So you can create destruction magic by pulling red, you can pull blue and create another kind of magic, and you can even combine them to make really unique magic. Now, the Fae are ruled over by the Mother. She's super evil, and the Mother has a henchman named the Silent Death. Now, our main character one day goes to sleep in her bed, and when she wakes up, her entire town is on fire, everybody is missing, and standing above her is the Silent Death himself. And eventually, they are going to have to fake date in order to survive. I love their romance so much. Also, this has ASL rep, and just everything about the series is fantastic. I never finished because at the time I was listening to these books, not all the audiobooks have released. They have since all come out, so I will definitely be re-binging this series soon. Alright, so I did take some liberties with this next trope. We have workplace romance, which is obviously when two characters end up falling in love while working together. My only issue is there is not a ton of workplace fantasy romance books, so I kind of changed it, and now it's going to be falling in love while trading together, or falling in love while at a military academy together. All of the books I picked kind of have that type of vibe. So, first up, we have another very recent read. So, Direbound by Sable Sorensen. Everyone is talking about this book. They're calling it Fourth Wing with Direwolves. That is 100% what this book is. I did really enjoy it. Just know going in, there are so many similarities to Fourth Wing, but it's like a more violent version, which I can kind of get behind. So in the story, we are following this girl who is just kind of living her life with her sister and her mother, who is slowly kind of going crazy. Now, one day her sister ends up being kidnapped, and our main character is so desperate to save her that she ends up joining kind of like the military of this realm. Now, what she doesn't realize is there are going to be bonding trials this year, which is when some of the cadets from this military are forced to go through these trials in the hopes of bonding with a direwolf. It is unbelievably dangerous. Many people die, and now our main character has been thrust into these trials. So I did very much enjoy this. I will go more in depth in my overall wrap up, but I did give this, I think 4.5 stars. So good. Just really, really similar to Fourth Wing, which we can talk about next. So I am sure many of you have already read Fourth Wing. It's actually a lot of people's introduction into Romantasy. I love this series. I 100% think it is worth reading. Is it the most amazing fantasy romance series ever? I don't think so, but I definitely think it is worth checking out. So in this, we are following Violet Sorrengail, who has grown up believing she is going to become a scribe until her dragon rider mother tells her that no daughter of hers will become a scribe. Instead, she is going to go to this dragon rider university in the hopes of surviving long enough to cross the parapet, not have any cadets kill her, and eventually bond with a dragon and gain magical abilities. Or die trying, which is very, very possible. So once again, I absolutely love this series. I will say, I think the first book is my favorite. Second book, okay. Third book, that one was a bit rough. I'm really hoping the fourth book just knocks it out of the park. I am so excited for that book to drop. And then last up, we have Blood and Steel. This is the first book in the Legend of Thesmar series. I recently hosted a read-along along with my patrons where we all read this series together. Oh my gosh, it is so good. If you like The Witcher, you will love this. But this is essentially following a girl that has dreamed of one day becoming a warrior of legend. Unfortunately, women are no longer allowed to practice wielding weapons. So she's been practicing in secret, and eventually she is found out by one of these warriors who reluctantly is then forced to train her. And it's their romance, but there's so much more than that. The found family in this is so good. So highly recommend. All of these books are amazing. And the next trope is second chance romance. Now, second chance romance is when two characters who were once deeply in love or had some sort of romantic connection are forced to part and then eventually are able to rekindle their romance. This is another one that I find mostly in contemporary or dark romance. Actually, if you have not read Insatiable, it is a dark romance and my new favorite, Second Chance. Highly recommend by Lee Rivers. Definitely check trigger warnings. But I don't find a ton of fantasy romance that typically have second chance. So I have a few. I have talked about some of these books in past trope rec videos, so I apologize for that. I was trying to find new ones for this entire video. But first up, we have Metal Slinger. I'm not going to get into the romance in this at all. Just trust me, there is a bit of a second chance aspect. But this is following this guard who is from a group of people that have been kind of ostracized from the main grouping of people, but they hold this annual market. And our main character, who now, like I said, is a guard, is invited to said annual market. But when she gets there, she ends up doing something that just kind of causes everything to erupt into chaos, and it's her story, and it is fantastic. As everyone says, the ending of this book will completely rock your world. I did not see it coming, and I was looking for the twist. So can't wait for the sequel. I really enjoyed this. Another second chance that I have talked about in other trope videos is Wolfsong by TJ Klune. This series is fantastic and will make you ugly cry from both sadness but also just beautiful moments. So this is kind of like a werewolf romance. We are following Ox, and Ox was told his entire life he is not going to get shit out of life. His father ends up leaving the family. It's just him and his mother, and eventually he gets a job working at a garage. But really, that is the only family he has. So one day he was walking home, I believe he's 16, and he runs into a cute little 10-year-old who says, "Oh my gosh, you smell like sunshine and rainbows, and I need you to come meet my family." So Joe, this 10-year-old, takes Ox to his family, and soon Ox discovers it is just a family of werewolves, and Joe is going to be the next alpha, and on top of all of this, that was the first time Joe had spoken in like 7 years. So the entire family becomes really close, and then tragedy strikes and everyone has to go their separate ways, and then second chance ensues. So overall, I love this series with all of my heart. This does feature an MM romance, and it's one of my favorite romances. I love Ox so much. It's impossible to not want to root for Ox in this. He's so lovable. But anyway, absolutely love this. And then finally, we have Between Wrath and Mercy by Jess Wisecup. This is another book I feel like I talk about a lot when it comes to mature characters and also second chance. So in this, we are following a woman who has been forced into a loveless marriage, but her one shining light is the daughter that she has had with her husband. Well, everything kind of goes out the window when her daughter ends up being captured. So now our main character has to put her trust in the person that broke her heart, the bloody Prince Rainier, and it's their rekindled romance, and it is addicting, and it is so good. So I also still haven't read the sequel to this. I started it, I haven't finished it. I need to go back and do a reread, but I love Jess Wisecup's writing, and once again, not only second chance, but also features mature characters in their 30s. And next up is another one of my favorite tropes of all time, Forbidden Love. So Forbidden Love is just describing a romance that is able to blossom despite very powerful obstacles working against it. And I have a ton, but immediately 2 books came to mind. So the first one is The Scattered Bones, one of my top reads of the year. And I say this in every video, this book is very short. You will feel like you read an entire 9-book series by the time you are done with this, in a very good way, but it emotionally just takes it out of you. There is so much packed into such a short book, and the writing is so beautiful and atmospheric. And let me tell you the plot. So essentially, this is following a woman who lived a very sheltered life. She was forbidden from having any sort of relationship, and she ends up breaking this rule, and she falls in love. Well, then, shortly after that, the love of her life has been brutally killed, and his body parts scattered across the realm. So she then runs into a mysterious stranger that tells her if she is able to find his body parts and bring them all back together, that he will be able to bring her love back to life. So she agrees, but this becomes even more challenging when she realizes that his body parts, despite being put all over the realm, are also guarded by these vengeful gods. So she has to overcome these trials. And while this is going on, it is dual timeline. We're watching her and the guys she absolutely loves slowly fall in love. And it is such a beautiful book. And oh my gosh, so good. And also another one of my absolute favorites, From Blood and Ash by Jennifer L. Armentrout. I love this series. It's actually one of the series that got me into Romantasy. I think the first few books in the From Blood and Ash series, and also the prequel series, are very well done. I just feel like the series was dragged on a little bit longer than it should have been. But if you're unfamiliar with From Blood and Ash, actually my first YouTube video was a video on From Blood and Ash, so I'll leave that in the cards and the description. But essentially, we are following this girl named Poppy, who is being raised in isolation, getting ready for a ritual known as the Ascension. Now, she doesn't know what the Ascension is. She just knows she's been preparing her entire life for it. So one day, she decides she wants to go out and have a little fun. So she puts on a disguise and goes to the Red Pearl, which is like a tavern. And when she gets there, she runs into Hawk, who is the newest member of the Rise Guard. And they have a little bit of a heated moment, only to go their separate ways the next day. Well, shortly after that, Hawk ends up being assigned as Poppy's personal guard, and it's their romance. He slowly brings her into his world. This has werewolves, vampires, everything. It is one of my favorite series, so definitely pick this up if you haven't yet. Alright guys, I am losing my voice, but we've made it to the final 4 tropes. So next up is Childhood Sweethearts. Now, this also is like the name suggests. We are following 2 people that were friends when they were younger, and that friendship slowly transitioned into a romance. And this is another one of those tropes that I find more in contemporary romance and dark romance than I do in Romantasy. So I literally could think of only one series. If you guys know any more, please leave them in the comments down below. I was really struggling with this one. all I could come up with is Shadow and Bone by Leigh Bardugo. This is the first book in I think it's called the Grishaverse, but this was recently adapted on Netflix. Unfortunately, Netflix canceled the show, and that was so disappointing. But if you're unfamiliar with Shadow and Bone, we are following this girl that grew up in an orphanage with her best friend Mal, and they really didn't think they were anything special. She ended up becoming a map maker. He ended up becoming like a soldier. And after finding out that she actually harbors this secret ability, she is forced to go to this academy to learn how to become a Grisha. And she is taught by the Darkling. And I'm sure a lot of you guys have read or heard of this series. Once again, I really enjoyed it. I didn't enjoy kind of the spin-off books quite as much, but this first trilogy was really fun, especially for a YA fantasy. I feel like it really holds up. So definitely check this out if you're looking for childhood friends to lovers. And next up is Forced Proximity. Now this is god tier level of trope for me. Forced Proximity is essentially a romance between two people who are forced to remain close to each other, or at least in a close proximity, either because of magic or because of circumstance. And as they are forced to be together, a romance begins to grow between them. Now, a lot of dark romances feature forced proximity, but also a lot of fantasy romances. One horse, one bed, all of that kind of falls under the forced proximity umbrella. And once again, it is one of my faves. So I have 3 books, all feature forced proximity. All of them are top reads of the year, including 2 books that are kind of competing for like my all-time favorite fantasy romance of the year. So, first up we have In the Veins of Drowning. I just finished this book yesterday. It is worth all of the hype. The writing, the prose are gorgeous, but also easy to understand. The story is so epic. So in this, we are following this woman who has been hiding her entire life, both by the kingdom that she is living in that hunts sirens, and also from her own deep, dark power. Now, one day, a prince ends up visiting, or actually he's a king, ends up visiting the kingdom that she is residing in, and he believes that he discovers a secret. So they end up entering into a blood bond, hence the forced proximity, in order to try to defeat a even bigger threat. So now they are traveling on the water together, trying to get to a new location, and they are being attacked by zombie sirens that are held together by kelp, and it's their romance. I love this. I loved this so much. Once again, I can't get past the writing. It was just so easy to visualize what was going on, and because the plot is just so epic and awesome, I love this. And it was also darker than I was expecting, so definitely check trigger warnings, but this is a awesome fantasy romance. Highly recommend. And then we have The Wolf King, which is also one of my top reads of the year. I've already talked about this book in so many videos. The Night Prince, the sequel, is one of my top reads of all time. I'm obsessed with that book. So in this, we are following Princess Aurora, and before she is supposed to be married, she ends up going to this werewolf kind of fight to the death, and as she's watching, she's just appalled, and she ends up trying to spare a young werewolf from being killed. Now, this catches the attention of the alpha werewolf that was about to kill that young werewolf, and when he ends up going back to the dungeons, he's able to escape, and he decides he's going to take Aurora with him. So they travel north, and this kind of sets up a war between the humans and the wolves, and it is Outlander and ACOTAR kind of mixed together, and I was obsessed. The writing is not my favorite, but the audiobook is spectacular. Shane East is the guy narrator, and he's amazing. So definitely recommend. And then finally, we have Secrets of Jane. This is a pirate romantasy that not enough people are talking about. So this is essentially following this woman who possesses some sort of magical ability, and she's kind of in hiding, but we're not exactly sure why, until she's discovered by like a pirate mercenary who has some very interesting magical abilities, and he has decided he is going to bring her back to essentially like a pirate council, and it's them traveling together, so very enemies to lovers, also forced proximity because they are in a pirate ship. And the next trope is Soulmates. Now, I'm going to put my own kind of romantasy twist on this and do Fated Mates. Now, Fated Mates is a trope where 2 people are destined to be together no matter what. It usually involves some form of magic, and I love a solid fated mates romantasy. I do believe it is kind of becoming overdone, but when it is done well, it is perfect. So I immediately thought of A Court of Thorns and Roses. I did try to find lesser known romantasy books for this video, but this is like the tried and true fated mates. Now, if you're unfamiliar with A Court of Thorns and Roses, it is a fantasy romance series by Sarah J. Maas. We are following Farah, and Farah is a human that lives on the border of the Fae and human lands. One day she goes out hunting and accidentally kills a Fae, mistaking it for a wolf, and because of that, she is forced to live as a prisoner of the High Lord of the Spring Court. So this first book is a bit of a Beauty and the Beast reimagining, but after this first book, it becomes so much more. It is so epic and good, and the romance is unbelievable. One of my favorite romances I've ever read. I love this series so much. Now, if you've read A Court of Thorns and Roses and you're still looking kind of for a fated mate vibe, we have The Zodiac Academy, which is another very hyped series. In this, we are following these two girls, Tori and Darcy Vega, who really only have each other to depend on. But on their 18th birthday, a vampire shows up on their door and says, hey, paranormal creatures exist, you two are actually Fae royalty, and in order to gain your inheritance, you have to go to the Zodiac Academy. Once you graduate, you'll gain all of your money and you'll have your freedom. So they agree, but when they get to the Zodiac Academy, they find out that there are already a bunch of celestial heirs who are these very attractive, powerful guys who are already ruling the school, and they don't want to deal with these two twins. So it's their romance. This series is so much fun. The writing leaves a little bit to be desired, but as far as the romances, they are addicting, and some of the friendships in this are also so good. So I love this series as well, and both of them do contain fated mates. And that brings us to our final trope, opposites attract. So this is following two characters that have contrasting personalities or opinions that end up entering into a relationship. So for this, I immediately thought of Radiance by Grace Draven. This is such a sweet, almost not like friends to lovers, but these two are absolutely repulsed by each other upon meeting each other, and then just slowly fall in love, and it is so beautiful to watch. So in this, we are following this princess who ends up in an arranged marriage with a Kai prince. And like I said, once they meet each other, they are completely repulsed by each other. But as they start to take care of each other and get to know each other, a romance begins to bloom between them, and it is one of my favorite fantasy romance books. So as you can see, they could not be more opposite. And then another one is The Savage and the Swan by Ella Fields. Admittedly, it has been quite a while since I've read this. I do remember this has nods to Rumpelstiltskin, Swan Lake, and a few other fairy tales. But in this, we are following this princess. I believe she's the princess of the Fae. And she is supposed to marry a human prince. One day she ends up running away, and eventually she catches the attention of the wolf, who is this very kind of gruff warrior who, from what I remember, I don't know if he transforms into a wolf, but he takes on a wolf persona. But anyway, they could not be more opposite, and he ends up taking her captive, and she is trying to, one, understand him, but also to free herself and get back to her people. So this is another opposites attract and also kind of captor-captive romance. Alright guys, that is it for my ultimate guide to fantasy romance / top of the trope tag. Now, I said this in the intro, this is a collab with a bunch of other amazing content creators, so I should have a playlist linked to the bottom of this video once this video releases. Now, I do believe everyone is kind of releasing their videos at different times, so I will try to stay as up to date as possible, but definitely check out everyone's video. I love all of these girls so much. They have amazing content. And I'd like to say a special thank you to my Paladin protectors, Amanda, Christy, Kat, Lada, Leslie, and Nerdy. Thank you guys so much for supporting my channel. And I said this already, I post new videos every Wednesday and Sunday. And if you haven't yet, please like and subscribe. I will see you all next week. Bye.